Hello, so today we are outside because I need to film a time-lapse for a video that I'm making, hence why my other camera is over here. And that is currently doing a time-lapse of the beautiful grounds, as you can see. Whoa, boom. Who wouldn't want to make a time-lapse of this? Of course, you can see the modern tower over there, and you can see new buildings over here, and of course, you can see the deer just here. That one's currently sitting down. So I'm currently in a bit of the college known as Addison's Walk, which is about a mile-round walk that was designed by a guy called Addison, and it takes you away from Magdalen and puts you, well, basically into the countryside. As you can see, there are just trees and a river and a bridge, and then through there's another garden, and then you go all the way back round, and then you loop back, and then you're back in Magdalen. So this week I've been studying Chinese foreign policy, specifically whether China misperceives what America's actions actually mean. And to give you some context, this is pretty much how I view China at the moment, and how, if it is a bit cautious, you should forgive it when it comes to, well, American actions. So imagine if you've been in numerous relationships, and those relationships didn't end very well. For instance, you may have been emotionally hurt, physically hurt, they came into your life and they absolutely destroyed everything that you were. Okay, so with that context, now you're going into a new relationship. After kind of sorting yourself out, you'd be cautious, right? You would read into their actions such that there's a branch, such that they're hurting you, their actions shouldn't be trusted. Now that's pretty much how I view China, with how it's perceiving the USA. So there are three schools of thought for how China is perceiving the USA. There's the non-Marxist one, there's the Marxist one, and then there's the hegemonic one, which is the most popular at the moment, so that's the one that we will run with. The hegemonic one says that the actions of the USA should be doubted as completely trustworthy, because America is just trying to establish itself as the big world power. It wants to be numero uno, and it sees China as a threat to that, so it is trying to act as to minimize China's influence. Okay, so there are a couple of questions there. Number one, do you think that America's actions are trying to establish itself as a hegemon? Is it trying to be the main influencer over what other countries do in the world to serve its own self-interest? So the second question is, can you blame China for being so cautious when it has been invaded, enslaved, and so many parts of it have just been ruined by various conquerors over the years? If you take the Opium Wars, if you take what Japan did to it, just as two examples, can you blame it now that it's established itself and gained some power and it's finally beginning to progress and become very advanced and developed? Can you blame China for being cautious to protect that? So yeah, sure, I definitely think that China is sometimes misperceiving the USA's actions, but is that a thing that's exclusive to China? Surely there are other countries in the world that view what America is doing, say, with NATO, within the UN, as things that are just trying to serve its own interests. There are tons of theories going on about how, oh, America just wants oil, and it is trying to protect itself. So now you've got the emergence of numerous different countries trying to push forward their own foreign policy aims, as opposed to just agreeing with what the USA says, in juxtaposition to what was going on during the Cold War. For instance, if you take what's happened in Syria, you've got three big players in that, and then loads of other players who were also voicing their opinions now. So you had the USA, you had Russia, and you had China, and then within that in Europe, you had numerous different countries starting to assert their own opinions of what should happen to Syria. So there's some food for thought. And a couple of questions for you. Do you think America is trying to be a hegemon and force its own self-interests onto other countries? Do you think China should be cautious? Do you think China is being overly cautious? Or do you think it's being understandably cautious? From the reading I've done thus far, I have discovered that the research that China does into the different actions and the different motivations of what the USA is actually doing in kind of their causal process are incredibly accurate. The data that China has over what the USA is doing is incredibly good quality. So I wouldn't say that information is something that is hindering or how it perceives America. Now, Chinese foreign policy is made even more interesting in light of what is going to be happening in about a week when China's leaders sit down and apparently they're going to be bringing about reforms that are more revolutionary than the economic liberalization that Deng Xiaoping brought in the 1970s. Apparently there's going to be more liberalization, the state-owned enterprises might be exposed to more foreign capital, there might be more entrepreneurialism within China, but these are obviously just kind of hopes of the West. So, if you would like to try that, there's an article, I'll put it down in the description, that kind of gives you a bit of context to what these reforms might be, and some context to what the previous reforms on the Deng Xiaoping were. And if you are interested, feel free to track it through time. I will definitely be tracking it because it's incredibly interesting. Until then, goodbye, because I think my battery is going to run out. Turns out there's a bit of life left in the battery. So, shout out to Argent Spirit, who correctly guessed that my friend was indeed a Homestuck character. And out of curiosity, who actually knows what Homestuck is? And can anyone actually name the character? I hope everyone's application is going well for university. I know that there are lots of aptitude tests coming up. The TSA, the HAT, the one. So best of luck for that. I hope you guys are prepared to the greatest extent you possibly can for these tests. Best of luck, and I feel your pain. So when I went home to see my family the other day, there was a letter through the letterbox, and this is what it read. Sorry, Erica, I fell into your thorn bush. My sister was giving me a piggyback due to bad blisters in my feet. She took a second to sit and rest on me. If this makes the situation better, I had grass seeds in my hair and was sitting on thorns. I'm sorry to you and the thorn bush. Have a nice evening. P.S. We were completely sober. It's just a one-off situation. My sister has weak ankles. My time-lapse is now done, so I will see you on Sunday, subscribers. And you probably want to see the time-lapse, don't you? Okay, here you go. This is why people need to go outside. Here comes the sun, it's alright.